This is Dads Watching Sports. It's the show by dads who watch sports, for dads who watch sports, or just dads in general. Here are the dads with a plan for every hashtag dad life and sports fan, Kyle Castles and Michael Draper.
And here we are on Dads Watching Sports. I am Michael Draper, and as you can see, I am not joined this week by Kyle Castles. Kyle is out on vacation, and I am joined by the one, the only, the Kirk daddy, Matt Kirk. Matt, how are you, sir?
I'm great, man, and it's the Kirk daddy.
The Kirk daddy. Excuse me. I'll correct that for the rest of the show. Well, Matt is in Turks and Caicos, or I'm sorry, not Matt. Kyle. I had Matt on my brain. Kyle is in Turks and Caicos for an extended vacation, probably sipping on a fruity drink with an umbrella stuffed in it. So, Matt, thanks for pinch hitting and for coming in on some short notice.
I thought he was at the Cockroach Hall of Fame.
I think they made a stop by the Cockroach Hall of Fame on their way to Turks and Caicos.
Okay.
With our legal representation, the Castles family law firm, providing that trip to Turks and Caicos, all inclusive, flying first class. Again, Kyle probably sitting right now drinking a Mai Tai by the pool with a little umbrella in it, enjoying the finer things in life.
I see him being Kyle, more of a Bob Marley guy.
Yeah, you know, it could be. But Matt, we're excited to have you on. We've got another great guest that's going to be joining us later on in the show. He's been on the show before, Mark Jent. He is with the Simply a Fan website. You know, Matt, as we've been going through this sports venues bracket, I thought it'd be good to bring Mark on because he's got a whole business that's around getting people to their favorite sports venues and seeing their favorite sports teams. So excited to have Mark on here in just a little bit. It's Sunday, July 11th, and we, again, are the Dads Watching Sports, and thank you for checking us out. If you're live streaming us like TJ Burns is, who says, hello, boys. Hello, TJ. Welcome back to the show. If you're checking us out, do exactly what TJ just did. Shoot us a comment, interact with the show. We'd love to have you do that. Matt, I don't know if you checked out our show last week or not, but we had a lot of interaction. It was very interesting. We got down to in our bracket, we got down to the last matchup. It was St. Andrews versus the Rose Bowl for a trip to the Final Four. And we were dead heat. We were at a dead heat. It was 50-50 on the votes. And I said the next person to comment will get the deciding vote factor there. And we had simultaneous comments by Kyle's wife and Kyle's mother. So Kyle had to make the choice of who is going to be the one that gets the vote. We couldn't give it to one or the other because they came through simultaneously. So we flipped a coin. And St. Andrews won the coin toss and moved on to the Final Four, where they will join Wrigley Field, Augusta National, and Yankee Stadium. Tonight is the epic conclusion of our sports venues bracket. We also had the Twitterverse voting in, so we'll get to those votes as well on Twitter. But Matt, let's kind of get into it. I got a couple of topics here before we bring Mark on later and get into that bracket. The NBA Finals are on right now. Actually, Phoenix is up 2-0. But they're down 12 in the third quarter, against the Bucks. Any takeaways that you have from the NBA Finals so far, or just any thoughts on Phoenix up 2-0, CP3 2 games away from getting his first title? What's your thoughts?
Man, that's what I'm wanting to see. But, being a Razorback fan, I would be very happy if Bucks won too, Mr. Bobby Portis. Don't understand why he was not on, why he only played for 5 minutes last game. But I'd rather see Chris Paul get his. Portis has got a while left in the league.
No doubt about it. So Kyle joining us from Turks and Caicos. I'm sure, like I said, Kyle sitting there saying that, sitting poolside with an umbrella drink there by his side, having stopped at the Cockroach Hotel on the way down. Kyle, thanks for joining us. Get back to your wonderful vacation there in Turks and Caicos. Again, flying first class, paid for all by the Castles family law firm and our legal representation. Enjoy yourself, Kyle. Kyle says, I didn't realize they had a Target at Turks and Caicos. That's really cool. It's good to know that they're, a little bit more modern than we may have thought.
I bet you had a Target over by the Cockroach Hall of Fame.
That's true. That is true. They must have gone to that on the way. But Kyle, again, hope you're enjoying that wonderful wonderful vacation that most of us can't afford, and so we hope you're enjoying that. Yeah, NBA Finals. Matt, it's interesting. Call me crazy or whatever you want to, but I just don't think either of these teams are that good. Like, you think about the NBA Finals of years past and think about championship teams, and if you're ranking like the teams in the finals over the past decade, I think I might put this matchup towards the bottom. I wonder what your thoughts are on that, because this is not a series that I'm excited about. I don't think that either of these teams are all that good compared to champions of years past. What's your take on that?
Man, I think that the Suns are underappreciated. I feel like that DeAndre Ayton is a premier big man in the league already, and this is only his second year. And Chris Paul, he's been doing it for a long time. I do think that the Bucks are probably a little overrated. I think that that last series could have gone either way, and I think it would have been a better series had I believe they played the Nets. It wasn't the Nets, was it?
The Bucks played the for a sports show. You think we would know this? Who did the Bucks play? They played the Nets, but then they moved on to the Eastern Conference Finals, and they played. Yeah, that's a good question. I can't remember off the top of my head, but anyways, yes, you were saying that they that it's, I don't know, it's just not an attractive matchup. I think oh my goodness, Cam Johnson just absolutely baptized someone on television. I think that was Chris Middleton, or no, I don't know who that was, but there was a baptism just now in the NBA Finals. So maybe that will maybe they heard me talking and they said, you know what, take this, Michael Draper. We are good and we can play because oh my Lord. Ooh, yeah. Well, we'll see. We'll see how it all shapes down, whether Chris Paul gets a ring, whether your boy Bobby Portis does. I guess, what's your prediction, Matt?
It was the Hawks that they played, by the way, Michael.
Hawks, that's it. Yeah.
I think Trae Young would have showed up and he would have showed out. I think that the Suns are going to end up getting it in 6.
Okay. Well, we'll see. They got a 2-0 lead. They only need 2 more wins out of the next 4 games. So we'll definitely see, and maybe we'll have a champion crown by the time we talk with you guys next week here on Dad's Watching Sports. Speaking of talking about sports, Matt, so Marv Albert, just a decorated sports broadcasters, had some of the most really just kind of thrilling and most iconic calls, specifically when it comes to basketball, both college and NBA. Announced his retirement. He had a long, outstanding career, predominantly with NBC Sports. You think about some of the biggest moments in his career, some of the biggest moments that he's called. You kind of automatically think of some of those Bulls teams, some of the Lakers games, in the early 2000s, because he was just so prominent. Had those kind of one-line zingers, the yes, and all those different ones. But if you're thinking best Marv Albert calls of all time, what do you have on your top 3 of Marv Albert calls of all time?
So I would say my third is whenever Kobe dunked on Yao Ming and he said, "Serves up a facial."
Yep.
And then are we going to go around like turn by turn, or is it just my turn?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay. And then in the flu game, he said, that's not bad for a guy with the flu. Talking about, how great Michael Jordan played, the greatest of all time. And then, Michael, I don't know if you had read this or not, but June 25th, 2021, Marv Albert was asked, who is the GOAT? Who's the greatest basketball player of all time? And he spoke the truth. And he said his Airness, Michael Air Jordan. And that is the best call he has ever made.
Kyle says, don't say something about biting someone. We will not do that, Kyle. I'm sure everybody knows what you're talking about there. Those are all good. I knew when you texted me earlier in the week and you said you'll never guess my number one, or check out, you'll just wait till you hear my number one. I just had this suspecting feeling it was going to be something about throwing shade at LeBron, or as you call him, LeBum. And you did not disappoint, Matt. So thank you very much for that. Okay, so my top 3, I've actually got one about LeBron too, but I think this was a great call on his, and it was just a great performance. So 2009, if you remember correctly, the Magic played the Lakers in the finals, but in order to get to the finals, the Magic had to go through LeBron and the Cavs. Game 2 of that series, Orlando's already up 1-0, and LeBron hits that kind of fadeaway three at the buzzer to give the Cavs a 1-point win, really kind of starting his move into the kind of legacy that he's at, whether you think he's the greatest of all time or you think he's a LeBum. He still kind of started that in that series and kind of moved forward the rest of the way. Number 2, I've got the shrug. Jordan against the Blazers comes down, hits the three, turns around, gives the little shrug. Marv Albert was on the call there. And then the number 1, I think without a doubt, is the Lakers versus Jordan and the Bulls in the finals. His airness, famously switching hands, going up, switching from right to left, and rocking that baby to sleep. And Marv Albert going, "A spectacular move by Michael Jordan," in my most awful Marv Albert impression possible. So those are my 3. If you're checking out the show, we'd love to hear yours as well before we kind of get into something else. So Matt, when I saw him, that he was retiring and, went kind of looking through his career and all that, it really made me kind of reminisce of when I was a kid and wanting to be a sports broadcaster. And when I was growing up, we had Sports Center on and during breakfast time in the mornings, getting a recap. Then we'd have it on in the evenings, getting kind of a pregame, a recap of the day sporting events. So my question is to you, because I basically just told you mine. I grew up wanting to be a Sports Center anchor. When you were a kid, Matt, what did you want to be when you grew up?
I wanted to be a Zamboni.
Well, I can imagine, Matt, that you wanted to be someone who unmuted yourself before you spoke, and so that way everybody would be able to hear you when you're on a podcast like Dad's Watching Sports.
Why did you mute me to begin with?
And again, I would imagine you would want to unmute yourself, but right now we're having a little trouble with that. So maybe you'll be able to
Can you hear me now?
Get yourself unmuted, and we still can't hear you, my man, but that's quite all right. We'll figure that out in just a second. We got a comment here. So Kyle jumps in, and Kyle says, "I wanted to be an NFL referee." Now, I don't know a whole lot of people in my lifetime that want to be referees because basically you get nobody to give you any good feedback. It's all negative feedback. You get called names by the crowd. You get to do all that kind of fun stuff, and nobody really chooses to give you some positive feedback. All right, Matt, are you there with us now?
Can you hear me?
Nope, still can't hear you. We cannot hear you now. Kyle says I'd never lose. I don't know how you could lose, Kyle, as being a referee, win or lose. We dropped Matt off. We'll bring him back on here in a few minutes. But for me, it was sports anchor. I grew up again instead of watching Sports Center. I wanted to be an anchor. Actually ended up going to college and doing some broadcasting, but not able to do that. So now they're saying that they can hear Matt, but I cannot. So Matt, why don't you come on and let me see if I can hear you. I'm going to play with my audio here, but you go ahead and tell us, what did you want to be when you grew up?
I wanted to work in the ER. I always loved the show ER, so I wanted to be that. I loved Dr. Green, but I also wanted to be a Zamboni driver. I think that would have been the coolest job ever.
Well, man, I'm sure that would be a cool job because you said it, but I did not hear what you said, but I got the very end of the tail end of that. But I'm sure the listeners are like, oh yeah, that was very good. For my own individual, could you tell me? What was that you said, Matt?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I wanted to be a Zamboni driver for one, but also I love watching the show ER. Okay. And I loved that show. I wanted to be Dr. Green so bad it hurt.
There you go. I think everybody wanted to be Dr. Green back in the day, without a doubt. All right, let's shift gears really quickly before we go to a break, and then we're going to bring on Mark from Simply a Fan. So every once in a while, Matt, on this show, we like to bring up some articles from this publication called All Pro Dad. It's got Tony Dungy, Benjamin Watson, Dan Orlovsky, just a bunch of guys that are in sports that are also dads. And they usually write these articles, and they're usually pretty thought-provoking on just kind of the way that they just the way that they, kind of challenge dads to be a good dad, a good husband, and all the stuff that comes with that. And so I saw this article from them last week, and it really made me kind of think. And I thought it'd be a good topic for us to broach, and maybe we'll even ask Mark this question when he comes on and joins us in a few minutes. But the 5 things that you want your kids to say about you when they're grown. Now, this could be, not to be morbid, this could be at your funeral. This could be just when you're old and gray and your kids have their own kids and somebody says, hey, get up and, it's your dad's 80th birthday. Get up and say something nice about him. But 5 things you want your kids to say about you when they're grown. Matt, I'll go through mine first and then I'll pass it off to you. So my top 5, my number 5 is he always thought of others. I think that's something that I try to pride myself on, and I really hope that my kids pick up on and can really move forward through their lives with always trying to put other people first. That's what we're called to do as Christians, and that's what we try to teach them is like try to think of someone other than yourself in really any kind of scenario that you can be in. Number 4, I've got he listened. I think that's one thing that from a dad's perspective, the best thing that we can do for our kids is just to sit down and listen sometimes. I know there's always those times when we want to fix everything and we want to try to be the person that can fix their issues as opposed to just maybe sitting down and listening to them because they may be able to figure it out themselves. Number 3, he was always there, whether it's when they were born or sporting events or when they come home and they got their first bad grade or they come home and they got broken up with for the first time. Like, I just want them to know, dad is always there and he was there and he will continue to be there. Number 2, I've got that he loved mom. I think that's something that I'd really try to convey in front of our kids, like the way that I love their mother, because I feel like that's the way that they're going to interpret what they need to look for in a future spouse. And then number 1, obviously, he loved me. And I even added he loved me like Jesus does, because we're a Christian family. We don't shy away from that. And I want to make sure that they understand that someone loves them much greater than I do, but that I love them the way that person does, and that being Jesus and God. So those are my top 5. Matt, what do you got?
Well, I would like you to next time to sing that in your best Eric Church voice.
There we go.
On call, she loves me like Jesus does.
Absolutely.
But I tell you, Michael, you kind of stole my list here. But I would say for number 5, the thing for me is that I always took great care of them, of both my kids and their mom. Which is the thing that, that you've already said, I guess, that I always help my kids be their best. So, anytime that they come to me for advice or whatever, I want to be able to, to shoot them straight and help them be the best person that they can be. And that they can always talk to me about anything, be it, that they did something stupid or they think something's funny. I just want them to know that I'm going to listen to them. And there's one other thing that, I feel like that I kind of lacked, a little bit with my dad was that we just never had any kind of fun together. And I want my kids to think that I am funny and that I'm fun and that we do all kinds of fun stuff whenever it's just me and the kids and dad, or anytime that dad's around, it's going to be fun. And I always want them to know that I'm there. Every game they play, anything that they do at school, anything that they're doing, I will be at every single thing because I feel like that is extremely important.
Absolutely. Well, Matt, I've known you for quite a while, and I don't think your kids are going to have to worry about it. Or you're not going to have to worry about them thinking you're funny because you're one of the funniest people I know. So I know that they'll think that, and they'll continue to have a lot of fun with you. All right, Matt, we're going to go to a break. When we come back, we're going to be joined by Mark Jent of Simply a Fan, and he's going to not only talk about that, what they've had going on, but also we're going to talk about our best venue in sports. Mark's a big baseball guy. We've got 2 stadiums in our Final Four that are baseball stadiums. I'm sure he has got some strong feelings on that and more. So we'll be back right after this break with more Dads Watching Sports, and we'll get into our bracket, the Final Four matchup, Augusta National versus Yankee Stadium, Wrigley Field versus St. Andrews. We'll be right back on Dads Watching Sports. Big news in the Dads Watching Sports podcasting world. You've heard us mention it on the show already. We are now part of the Off the Ball Podcast Network.
We're super excited to be joining the team of great shows, hopefully adding a little dad flavor to the mix. You can check out Off the Ball Podcast and Off the Ball Network on all your social media sites. Just search Off the Ball Network. And while you're there, give them a like and a follow. You won't regret it.
Welcome back to Dad's Watching Sports on the Off the Ball Network. We're powered by MyBookie, which we're excited about, and we will continue to have more information about that as we kind of continue to move on through our show and through the summer. But big props to our president and chief, our leader, Mr. Chris LeBron, for him and his crew bringing on MyBookie, because obviously that is something that we've benefited from ourselves. So we're really excited about that, and very excited to have them on board. We're also very excited to be joined by our next guest, and that is Mark Jent. He is a friend of the show. He's been on with us several times before. Mark, welcome back to Dad's Watching Sports. How are you, sir?
Good, Michael. How are you doing?
Man, we are good. I told you, a couple of weeks ago, we were doing this best venues in sports bracket. And I thought, as we're kind of making our way through this, like, who are those people that not only have a passion for sports, but really specifically have a passion for these venues and getting and in your line of business, or what you do on the side is getting people to those venues to watch their team. So I thought, man, we got to bring you back on as we kind of finish this up. So thanks so much for joining us, and we'll get into the bracket here in a second. But
I'm honored to be asked, and honored to be put in that conversation. And you've had quite a bracket. I was looking it over, and I know we'll talk about that in a minute. But wow, how you went from that list down to only 4. That's pretty tough.
It's been fun, and Kyle, who normally co-hosts with me, gave me a really hard time for putting Wrigley Field as the 3 seed because he's a big Chicago Cubs fan. But as you look through, the 64 venues that we had, even getting those things seeded to a point where we could break this down was tough enough. And then you're really just kind of splitting hairs and saying, okay, what is my preference on a lot of these?
Yeah.
And with a lot of them, I've never been to them. And neither have a lot of people that have participated in the voting, but we're excited to get into it. And
we'll get into that. Yeah,
and we will here in just a few minutes. But really, one thing I wanted to ask both of you guys about before we jump into this. And Mark, I don't know. Well, I've got 2 things actually. I don't know if you happen to hear what we were talking about right before the break. But one of the things we try to incorporate in the show every once in a while is these articles by All Pro Dad. And one of the articles was 5 things I want my kids to say about me when they grow up. I know I didn't give you hardly any time for prep here, but is there anything, 1 or 2 things that maybe stand out to you? Like, man, this is really something I want my kids to say about me when they're grown and when I am old and gray.
Yeah. And I won't be too gray, but I will be old. I did hear y'all talking about that. And I saw there were a few that came to mind. Am I there? You got me?
Yeah, you are. Yeah.
There were a few that came to mind, and these are ones that you think, as a dad, I'm going to fall so short of what I want to be and expectations, but at the same point, you just got to give it your best effort. So here are mine, and I don't know that these are necessarily in order. Maybe they are, but I kind of ranked them a little bit 5 to 1. I hope my kids will say, he enjoyed taking us on adventures. And I say that, Matt and Michael, and I think that seems a little shallow. But then I think, that's who we are. Like that's kind of who we are as a family. That's kind of who we are as parents, and who that we're raising them to be a little bit. More than just going on an adventure. And it doesn't have to be to a ball game or, on a big vacation. It can be going to chase a waterfall, which is something we enjoy doing a lot. So, he enjoyed not only having fun, but he enjoyed taking us on adventures and having experiences. He was fully present. One that I do fall short of, but I strive to do more and more just in being present and being there. Another is, just that he was a man. I hope that they can say that I was a man of honesty and integrity. Sure. Just in who I was as a dad, but either what I did for work or as a friend, whatever that may be. And then number 2, I put that he loved mom well.
Yep.
I think you mentioned something similar to that, but I really believe that kids can learn a lot in watching that marriage and in watching how a man treats a woman and how dad treats mom.
Yep.
And then my final one is just that he put God first, for himself personally, but then also for our family.
For sure. Yeah. No, those are fantastic. And I think we would all, I think within our list of what I guess was 15 between the three of us, I think we could all say, yeah, these are things to strive for. And like you said, I hope we're not setting ourselves up for failure down the road. But it's just good to kind of keep those things in mind, because that's a good tool for us to kind of keep those things, in mind with our kids, and continuing to be mindful of the way we act and the things that we're prioritizing and things like that. So that's good. So one other thing I want to run by you guys, because you're both dads, this was not on the rundown, so this is a little spur of the moment, but I wanted to get y'all's take on this. So we had an interesting afternoon yesterday where we'd done some stuff in the morning. We've been out to like Cool Springs area, came back to the house, got the kids fed, got them a nap. And then we thought, you know what, it was turning into somewhat of a nice day. There was potential threat of a little bit of thunderstorms, but it didn't look like any of that was going to happen. So we thought, you know what, let's go to the Y and go to the pool. So we got the kids dressed, drive out to Franklin, get to the Y. We literally are walking through the locker room, and all of a sudden we hear them blow the whistle and say, "There's lightning. The pool is closed." I mean, literally as we're walking in with a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old. Our 4-year-old daughter obviously understands weather and understands this and can figure it out. But our 2-year-old son was heartbroken, just like absolutely crying on the way out. Like, I want to go to the pool. I want to go to the pool. And the workers feel so bad. So, we had to pivot very quickly. And we ended up, my wife was great. She was like, how about we go bowling? And we ended up going bowling, and it was great. But it kind of made me thinking about like those times when your kids get disappointed and it's not really anything that you can help. Like, you can't really, like, we couldn't control the weather. We couldn't control the fact that maybe we could have looked at the weather to determine that it was going to storm, even though it really didn't. But there's times when your kids get disappointed and it's things out of your control. Matt, I'll bring it to you first. Like, I don't know if you've experienced anything like that yet in your kid's young's life, but if you do, like, how do you just kind of work your way through those scenarios?
Man, when my daughter was sick in the hospital, that was one thing, because she had an IV in, and it was in her foot, and she couldn't get up and walk around, and she didn't understand that, that was really hard. But also the other day, we were at the pool, we were going to the splash pad over in our neighborhood, and the water wasn't coming out of the splash pad thing, or I don't know what you call it, but all the water features weren't working. And she was just bawling. She was so upset. She has been going through a growth spurt. She's been kind of irritable. So, but that really kind of just did her in, and she like moped. So we had to really redirect, and we ended up going home and playing outside. And she had fun. She got over it, but still, those two things are pretty hard, when they just don't understand.
Yeah, I think that, and that was the biggest struggle for us yesterday was, again, with Emma, it was fine because she understood, hey, mom and dad can't dictate the weather, and this is what happened, and it's unfortunate, but we're gonna try to do something else. Hayden had no understanding of it whatsoever. All he knew is we showed up to the pool. There was a pool right there. Why can't we get in the pool? And now we can't, and now I'm sad. And even though I'm dressed to go in the pool, we're not going to be able to do that. Mark, I know your kids are a little bit older, but so you might have had a little bit more life experience in this subject, but just kids being disappointed in something out of your control. Any thoughts about that?
Yeah, our kids are 8, 10, and 13 right now. So we can check the box a few more times, but I don't think I figured it out. You mentioning the Y pool is huge, or just going to the pool and when the weather hits. Yep. That is so out of the control, and they look forward to that. We had one earlier this summer. We went to Disney back at the beginning of June, and we had been at the park all day, and we'd already rode Big Thunder Mountain Railroad several times that morning, but then to close out the day, it was like we were doing that one more time, and got on the ride, and we're actually sitting on the seat getting ready to take off. This is at the very end of the day, and something happened on the track, malfunction, maintenance, and we literally have to get off the ride and get a pass. And our 8-year-old Zach Oh, he is so awesome. But, there's just that moment of disappointment of like, there's nothing you can do. There's, you can go buy ice cream or Dippin' Dots or, get a pretzel, but like, there's really nothing in that moment that is going to make up for that disappointment. So you kind of like, it sounds like what you did yesterday. You just took them bowling. You just kind of have to redirect and,
Yep.
they're going to recognize and realize it's out of your control. So, but yes, those moments of disappointment that are outside your control, those are, you learn on the fly. It doesn't matter what the books say.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it. Well, I appreciate you guys both kind of indulging me in that because, like I said, it happened, and it was just one of those things where I was like, man, I know everybody else has gone through these situations before, so I wanted to get your take. So Kyle jumps on again and says, "We just got back in the car." Lauren says, "Hi, Mark," and I know you guys have had some fun adventures going to watch Dodgers games.
Yeah, hey Lauren.
Last year. In the World Series. And let's talk about that for just a few minutes, Mark. With Simply a Fan, I know it's been an interesting year with fans starting to trickle back into ballparks, and now we're kind of back to a sense of normalcy in that regard. So what does that look like for Simply a Fan, and what's been going on? And I know you shot me some pictures, which I've got. So when you're ready for me to pull those up, just give me the nod. But what's been going on with Simply a Fan?
Yeah, so I kind of came into this, I primarily focus on baseball, and even though I've done other sports as well, but really came into this year, it was just an element of the unknown. Like we didn't know. You think back even 3 months ago, there was still a lot of unknowns about COVID and ballpark capacities, and some had zero and some had small capacities. And so it was, as a trip planner, it was really hard to plan anything that first half of the season. Yep. or sell anything just because I didn't know, hey, am I going to take somebody to Boston and we get there and the game's canceled for 2 days because of COVID?
Yeah.
So I was just really hesitant in that regard. Now I have been, I do have some planned for the second half that I'll tell you about here in a minute, but I have had several adventures so far. Some of those was Simply a Fan, and then some of those personally. I've been to, I think, 10 games this year so far. But some of those have just been when I've been on the road or work, whatnot. I've been able to check a couple of new ballparks off my list.
Nice.
To continue down my bucket list of trying to get to all 30 major league ballparks. So I've checked 2 off that list, those were fun. I got to go to Minute Maid Park in Houston. But that was odd. It was like 10 or 12,000 people there.
Mm-hmm.
And you just know that's not the case. Then a couple of weeks later, I was in Pittsburgh and got to go to PNC Park, which is a beautiful, gorgeous ballpark.
Yeah.
A lot of people would put it as, it's number one as far as the modern ballparks. And but I actually got to go that day on a Saturday to a 7-inning doubleheader. How they had canceled Friday night, so I got to go see my first 7-inning doubleheader, and that was even more bizarre. Like I think they announced the attendance at maybe 5,000 or 7,000 people, but there was no chance there was 5,000 people in the ballpark. So those were 2 things I did early in the year. I did have a group of a dozen that went to PNC Park, and I have had three nights. Simply Fans done 3 nights at the Sounds games. Love going out to First Horizon Park here in Nashville. We've taken about 80 plus people to those 3 games to support the local team, and also just give people who may not want or may not be into a longer adventure or going somewhere that they may enjoy that. And then the one that I think I sent you a picture of this one, but back at the beginning of April, our family went down to Atlanta. The Dodgers were playing the Braves for a 3-game series. And out of all the ball games I've ever been to myself, and all of our kids have been to ball games at this point with me or with me and Beth. They had all been to, Zach had been to 1, Harrison had been to 6 or 7 MLB games. I think Brooklyn had been to 10 or 11, but we had never been as a family of 5 to a Major League Baseball game together. And how big of a baseball fan I am. And so we set aside that weekend just for us. And I was very intentional. I told Beth, I said, I'm really tempted to turn this into Simply a Fan weekend, because there's a lot of Braves and Dodgers fans who I think I could get to go. But I was like, hey, I really want it to be about our family. So we had set aside, we went as a family on Friday night, and then went again on Sunday, and we were taking Saturday off to do some Atlanta stuff. But when the Dodgers put Kershaw. The rotation came out, and Kershaw was pitching on Saturday night. Brooklyn and I had a daddy-daughter date night, and
Nice.
so we ended up going to all 3 games. But that wasn't simply a fan thing necessarily, but it kind of still fits. It was just something really special for our family to get to go do that for the first time.
Absolutely. And remind all of our listeners and viewers out there where they can find information about Simply a Fan.
Yeah, so you can go to the website, simplyafan.com, find it on Facebook, on Instagram, it's at Simply a Fan Baseball, and on Twitter, it's Simply a Fan 18.
So one thing I've got to ask you, Mark, is we've noticed in doing this show that when I can kind of go back and look at the analytics afterwards and see where people are listening from, we have a fairly decent international crowd that follows our show. We've got 1 or 2 in Ireland. We've got someone in Germany that listens. We've got someone in Brazil. So when is the first international Simply a Fan trip coming up? And is it to one of our venues in our bracket?
One of our venues in a bracket. So none currently planned. I did plan on when MLB did they had the MLB Europe series a couple of years ago. I was really looking at that Yankees Red Sox series. Then last year it was supposed to be Cards and Cubs. And I think at Wembley Stadium, and they had to cancel that. I did put nothing currently on the docket, although I've had everything from the soccer fans tell me, hey, I'd love to go do a soccer week-long soccer trip in Europe.
Oh, yeah.
But I did put something out there recently. They announced that the 2032 Summer Olympics are going to be in Brisbane, Australia. And that is a place where it's where me and my wife met, and it's where we went and led mission trips every summer for about 15 years when I was working at Lipscomb University. And so it's kind of a second home to us on some regard, because we would go every summer for 3 or 4 weeks. And I put out there of, hey, 2032, Simply a Fan doing its first Summer Olympics. And
nice.
It was great to see the traction from all of our former students who were like, I'm in, I'm ready to go. There's so many great places internationally that you can go and watch a sporting event.
Without a doubt. And that's a perfect segue. So when we set up this bracket, like I said, I did quite a bit of research, and then it was also just kind of like thinking, okay, like if I'm a fan, where are the places that I want to go to watch a game, or where are the kind of those you got to go here before you die type of venues. So this is kind of a creation of mine and a little bit of Kyle's, but I wanted to put it to both of you as well. Just your top 10 favorite sports venues, and like if you were putting this bracket together and you said, okay, I'm going to get the top 10 to put in this bracket. Matt, we'll start with you first. What are your top 10 favorite sports venues? And these could be ones you've been to or ones that you want to go to.
And is this am I doing all 10, or are we gonna go?
Yeah. Go ahead and do your top 10.
All right, so 10, I've got of course I want to have Madison Square Garden. It seems like every stud NBA player, they happen to play their best game in that stadium, and of course Whoopi was filmed there. That's great.
That's its crowning moment. That's for sure.
Yes, Stacey Patton and I don't remember the guy, but Yvonne McBusket.
There you go. That's right.
I like that, and then I've got Lambeau Field. I've always wanted to go there. I think it's really cool, and I think it's cool that the people that live there own the team and all that.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And then I'm a NASCAR guy, so I'm apologizing in advance here, but Bristol Motor Speedway, but it's not in the speedway. It's out in the parking lot, people watching.
There you go. Yep.
That's where it's at right there, man. You want to talk about some people that have a good time. That's it right there. But
America's finest, without a doubt.
Yes. And then the Astrodome, lots of history there. James Booby Miles coached his team to almost beating Dallas Carter, the Permian Panthers there. And then we go Cowboy Stadium. I've been there for Arkansas games. I've been to a Cowboys game, and you can't really beat that there. I've been to a concerts, and it's just a beautiful stadium, state of the art. It's really nice. Speakers in there are huge. Took a tour of it, and they're the size of a Cadillac Escalade. The speakers that hang off the walls, which is really cool. They're all off the ceiling. And then again, NASCAR, Daytona. You can't beat that. They go there twice a year, opening weekends like the Super Bowl, and then they have like their I guess it'd be their version of well, I don't even know what it would be, but it's typically July 4th, but they pushed it this year to the start of the playoffs, which is in, I guess it's in August is when that starts. So that's one place I've always wanted to go. Then to the Rose Bowl at number 4. That's a beautiful stadium, and the USC, UCLA play there, and it's just, to me, that would be a really cool place to go. Then the Bridgestone Arena, that atmosphere at those Predators games, man, it is just really something else.
Mm-hmm.
And I happened to be there, the year they went to the Cup once, and I've been to probably 20 to 30 games there, man, and it's the best atmosphere I've been to. And then also, I love the FedEx Forum in Memphis. The Grizzlies, in my opinion, have one of the best atmospheres in the NBA I've been to.
It's very underrated fan base with the Grind City folks.
Yeah, you have to pray when you leave there, but when you're in the stadium, it's really, really nice.
Yeah,
it's a great atmosphere. Then all the local fans are great. They have great food. I really, I can endorse their nachos and the funnel cake.
There we go.
I enjoy those. And, I could have lumped this all into one, but any of the stadiums on University of Arkansas, the Don W. Reynolds Razorback Stadium, Bud Walton Arena, and Baum Walker Stadium. I've been to all 3 of those. I can't even tell you how many times. And it's the best atmosphere when the tip-off, the basketball games, in between innings of baseball games, and the kickoff at football games, that hog call, it'll make the hair on your whole body stand up.
There you go.
And for me, that would be a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very true. And also, I've been to Bud Walton. It's one of the, I'd give it a top 10 or top 15, definitely, probably closer to top 10 in college basketball. It's a great venue. I've never been to your baseball stadium there at Arkansas, but you guys were the number 1 team in the country this past year, and I heard a lot of really good things. So definitely some good ones there. Mark, what about you? Again, your top 10 favorite sports venues, and these could be domestically, internationally, just kind of all over the board.
Yeah, so I kind of looked at the list and kind of started thinking. I went down the route of ones I've been to.
Okay.
And it's going to be very heavy baseball related, but it's not. I don't think it's more than 50% MLB. So
yeah.
I got 9 out of 10 are ones I've been to. Then I've got a 10th that is one that I would love to go to. So these are actually in really in no certain order. I don't have a 10 to 1, but here are my 10. Neyland Stadium back in the I'm kind of giving some eras with this. All right.
Okay,
I don't care about going to Neyland Stadium now. I mean, I have gone and I will go, and it's okay. But Neyland Stadium, mid to late 90s, early 2000s. I mean, just 105,000 people. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
To be there for the ball walk when they come in. What's that?
You get to hear them sing the Rocky Top at the top of their lungs.
You do. You do. All right. So there's one, again, no certain order, back in the 98 season of the end of the Jordan era of the Last Dance, as we now know it, United Center.
Mm-hmm.
Went to one game, like in February of that year when it was, looking inevitable that Jordan was going to retire. So that was pretty special. Lambeau Field. My wife and I actually, just early on in our marriage, we were big NFL fans. We still enjoy it, but we really had a lot of admiration for Brett Favre. And there was a year where we said, "Hey, let's go to Lambeau Field to see Brett Favre play." I don't want to wait to hear who the next guy is. And we looked at the schedule. This was in the summer. It's like, "Hey, when do you want to go?" And I said, "I want to go in December when there's a chance for it to be below freezing and snowing.
Yep.
She's like, whoa, okay. So we did it. I mean, we didn't have kids. We did it. It was a crazy, wild adventure, but we got there and ended up being a Sunday night football game. And it was 12 degrees at game time with flurries.
That's awesome.
And 0 wind chill. And to see Brett Favre play the Lions. And it was everything I could have imagined.
I was going to say, that's the Lambeau experience, though. Like, you don't go for a mid-September game, when it's in the 60s or 70s. That's awesome. Kudos to you for like seeking out. I want the full experience.
I want the full experience. I mean, there was snow on the ground on the way there. We ate at Brett Favre's Steakhouse. I mean, it was just that was before he retired 3 or 4 times. But I think he ended up with the Packers for 2 more years. But we were really glad we did that adventure. And to add to it, our flight out of Nashville got canceled on Saturday. We ended up renting a car and driving Nashville to Green Bay on Saturday, just so we wouldn't miss the Sunday game, because if Sunday's flight got canceled, we would have missed that. So anyway, Lambeau Field. So Neyland United Center, Lambeau Field. I have been to St. Andrews. I'm not a huge golf fan, but and I did not go for any tournament, but I had a friend from here who got married in Scotland, and was over there for his wedding, and got to walk out on St. Andrews and got to be out there on that iconic, I think it's the 18th hole that looks back over the clubhouse.
Right.
That was pretty awesome. Like that was pretty amazing. All right. And then we're going to go baseball. TD Ameritrade Park in Omaha for the College World Series.
Yep.
Took a group out there 2 years ago. I went for the championship series of Vandy versus Michigan.
Okay.
But on the bucket list is to go for all 2 weeks when they're just going head to head and all the fan bases are there. I've heard that is just amazing. But TD Ameritrade, that's one. So that's 5 now. And then we're going to go baseball. Old Yankee Stadium.
Yep.
Was there in 96 for a game. Saw my favorite player from childhood, Darryl Strawberry, hit his 300th home run in a walk-off in the one game I went to, the old Yankee Stadium. Just so much history, and from Ruth to Gehrig to Mantle, DiMaggio, Maris. I mean, just thinking about who all played on that field was pretty epic.
Absolutely.
Then we're going to go Dodger Stadium. Again, this is in no certain order, but it's up there for me as a Dodger fan, and it's the 3rd oldest ballpark in the majors, but it has held its age well, as it's now almost 60 years old. And then going to go to Fenway. You got to get Fenway and Wrigley both in there, and I was glad to see kind of where they made it through the bracket, Fenway and Wrigley. Just there's something about those 2 parks being well over 100 years old now that will always make them like special there at the top. And then I'm going to go. So for my 10th one, if I could go back in time and be at one sports venue in a moment that, would be just pretty special, I would go to the Boston Garden in the 80s when it was Celtics Lakers and it was Magic Bird. I was a big NBA fan growing up, a lot bigger than I am now, and I'd go to the Garden. So there's my 10. 9 I've been to, and 1 that I would travel back in time and go to.
For sure. I hadn't thought about that. Like if I could travel back in time and go to an event, but when you said that, for some reason, the only sporting event that popped in my mind was going to Lake Placid for the USA Russia hockey game where we knocked off the Russians. For some reason, that just popped up because I just think that would be. I mean, I wasn't even born at that point in time, but just to be able to go back and witness that, one of the greatest upsets of all time, I think that would be fantastic. So both of you mentioned a few of the ones that we've got in our final 4. So let me set the stage here, and I'm going to give you a quick little rundown of how we got here. So our final 4 teams in our bracket. Coming out of the Wembley Stadium region was the 3 seed Augusta National. So it knocked off Hinkle Fieldhouse in the first round, Pebble Beach in the second round, Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and then in the Elite 8 knocked off Americana, where we saw an epic Copa game last night where Messi got his first ever international trophy, which was kind of cool. They will be matched up against Yankee Stadium, the number 1 seed out of their bracket. They took down Soldier Field, Death Valley, the Louisiana Superdome, and then the Cinderella of our bracket was Caesar's Palace, the 14 seed, made it all the way to the Elite 8. So that is our first matchup, Augusta National and Yankee Stadium. You've got I mean, just the history that you just talked about, Mark, with Yankee Stadium, and just thinking about all the players that stepped foot in that stadium, not only that played there for the Yankees, but just throughout the history of baseball. And you've got Augusta National, which is, I don't know if you've ever been there, but it's just pristine, and it's just kind of on a different level when it comes to that tournament in golf. So what we're going to do here is we'll just kind of go round robin. We'll get a vote each. What we may do is I haven't decided if I'm going to let this vote count because that we potentially might have a tie. But we also put our matchups on Twitter. And I tell you what, for the purpose of this first matchup, I'll give you what Twitter voted, but we won't count it in the official votes of who moves on. So in the Twitter vote, by a percentage of 54 to 45%, so it's close, Augusta National picked over Yankee Stadium. Matt, I will toss it to you for the first official vote. You going Yankee Stadium or Augusta National?
Man, you guys hit it on the head. All those players that played in there. Imagine all the steroids that got injected in that stadium. You know? No, I'm kidding. But for real though, like, you know, A-Rod, Babe Ruth, Garrick, all those guys, man, they were there. That place used to, which still is popping, but you know, if it was still there, it would still be packed to the rafters every single game, or packed to the sky, I guess, whatever you want to call it. I'm going with Yankee Stadium.
All right, so we got one vote for Yankee Stadium. I'll throw Kyle's vote in as well. He also votes for Yankee Stadium. So we'll go a 2-0 lead for Yankee Stadium. I'll go next. I'm going to go Augusta National just because I think when you think of those sporting events that just kind of the world, or at least our country, just kind of pauses. The Masters is one of those, and I think I know it's a major tournament, and it's usually accompanied by a run by Tiger Woods, but that venue is one of the big pieces of that tournament. And I don't know if either of you have been there. I had a chance to go a couple of years ago, and it was phenomenal. Like it's just the most pristine golf course I have ever laid eyes on. Everything about it is just pristine. And so I'm going to give one vote, just mainly because I don't think it's going to get any more. But I'm going to get one vote for Augusta National to move on. Mark, do you tie us up, or do you move Yankee Stadium on to probably its rightful place in the finals?
Oh, this is so tough. I'll be honest. This is really, really challenging because, I mean, you can't go wrong in either one of these votes. But
sure.
I mean, the passion I have to go Yankee Stadium.
Yeah.
Now I guess, I mean, you know, I'm going old Yankee Stadium. I mean, I'll tell you, the new Yankee Stadium is nice. I've been there, and it's really nice, and they did a really good job with it. But you can just lump them all into one.
Sure.
Because when Yankee Stadium is rocking, whether you're in the 1920s or the 2020s, it's pretty special. But Augusta, I mean, you said the word that comes to mind when you think of Augusta, you nailed it. You said pristine, and you know, there are probably more people who are not golf fans who tune into Augusta, who tune into the Masters just simply because of that, you know. Yep. So, but Yankee Stadium gets my vote.
Yankee Stadium
on Facebook, you would know every year I post about I'm not playing in the Masters this year, every single year. So, you know, of course it's gonna, you know, that's the one thing everybody knows. So that's kind of why I do it.
There you go. Absolutely. It's a national treasure. That's for sure. And speaking of that, we've got another one of those in our other matchup. So our other matchup for the Final Four to send somebody to play Yankee Stadium in the finals, we've got the 3 seed Wrigley Field. So they took down the Emirates Stadium in the first round, then Bryant-Denny Stadium in the second. Probably our toughest matchup thus far in the round of 16, Wrigley Stadium versus Lambeau Field, and Wrigley edged out a victory there. And then Wrigley took down the 1 seed Madison Square Garden in the round of 8. They will be going up against the 1 seed St. Andrews, who took down Joe Louis Arena, the Staples Center, the Philadelphia Spectrum, which got a lot of love on this show, and then the Rose Bowl last week. So we've got St. Andrews, Wrigley Field, two just historic venues. I will save the Twitter vote for the end, but Mark, I will let you go first. You've been to St. Andrews. I can imagine. I think you've been to Wrigley. So these are two places you've been. Where is your vote for best venue?
We're going to go to Wrigley. It is pretty everything from Wrigleyville now that they have. I mean, even before that, it's pretty special to be outside, to the iconic red scoreboard sign out front, to the statues they have, to the shops and the restaurants. And then when you walk into the ballpark, my favorite Wrigley moment, I've been to Wrigley a few times. But the day I took a few people to in April of 2017, the night they got their World Series rings. So this is the season after. And we walk in and we're right behind home plate, not sitting behind home plate. We just walk in the ballpark right behind home plate. And we take a left to go down the third base line to watch batting practice. And Ryan Sandberg walks right up to us, is passing us. And people who had been with me had never been to Wrigley before. And they're like, is this normal? Do you always walk into Wrigley Field and you're greeted by a Hall of Famer? I'm
right.
It was simply a fan. Yes, it's always.
That's right. That's right. That's part of your concierge service.
Yeah, it's part of the service. Yeah,
that's right.
But but Wrigley Field, just it's hands down to me between those two. Having been at St. Andrews and just stepped on the course, and then, I mean, you can't go wrong in these kind of votes. But Wrigley, to me, we're going to have a Yankee versus Wrigley matchup in the finals. But that's where I land.
All right, Matt, Wrigley Field or St. Andrews?
Do you want to have are you going to be the tiebreaker, Michael?
Are we going to need a tiebreaker?
No, we're not. I'm going with Wrigley Field. You can't beat the ivy, the fresh cut grass, Sammy Sosa hitting dingers. You just can't beat that, man. That was the curse of that with the Cubs, and then winning the World Series. I bet that environment is one that I for sure want to see, which it almost got on my list, but it did not. But it's definitely a place I want to go to.
This is a tough one for me because I've been to Wrigley, and it was really cool. I've been there twice, I think. Never been to St. Andrews, but I mean, just when a place is called the birthplace of golf, if Wrigley was the birthplace of baseball, I'd feel maybe a little bit differently here. But maybe it's just the sports fan in me that's just not overly a big baseball fan. But I'm going St. Andrews, and it doesn't matter because I know Kyle would vote Wrigley Field 10 times over, and the Twitterverse also in a 69 to 31 vote had Wrigley Field moving on. So I'll vote St. Andrews just because I want to tell Kyle that I didn't vote for Wrigley in this matchup, but Wrigley Field is going to move on. So we have got an all baseball matchup. And to be honest, when I created this, I figured this was probably going to be the case. You're going to see that with, the tradition of baseball fields and the history and the longevity, but we've got Yankee Stadium and Wrigley Field. We're going to go to one last quick break. When we come back, we will pick a champion.
Oh, wow.
Dad's Watching Sports. We will be right back.
Yeah.
Coming up next week on episode 73 of Dad's Watching Sports. The dads are joined by Rob Kinney, the YouTube sensation for Dad, How Do I? As he talks about how did he start this and everything going on with all the projects that he has going on for Dad, How Do I? All that and more next week on Dad's Watching Sports. We'll see you then. We're back here on Dad's Watching Sports. Michael Draper, Mark Jent, Matt Kirk. We are one step away from crowning a champion. We've had this bracket going for what it feels like about 6 months, but I think it's only been a month. But we basically whittled our way down from 64 venues to the final 2, and we're going to get to that in just 1 second. Before we pick our winner, a couple things I want to remind you guys of. If you are checking us out on our podcast, go ahead and hit a subscribe, hit that subscribe button and go ahead and subscribe to the podcast, and it will download automatically and wherever you listen to podcasts each and every week. And while you're there, go ahead and give us a review and give us a rating as well. We'd love to get that 5-star rating and tell us how much you've enjoyed this bracket or maybe frankly how much you're glad that it's finally over with. Also, if you check us out on social media, go ahead and shoot us a comment on our Facebook or Twitter or our Instagram pages as well. All right, guys, before we get into this final matchup, one other thing that I wanted to discuss with you, and it's kind of timely because of everything going on. So we're in the middle of the NBA Finals. We just finished the NHL Finals. My Canadiens fell to what was without a doubt the best team in the Tampa Bay Lightning. Got that repeat. We're in the middle of Wimbledon. We're in the middle of the Tour de France. I don't know if you guys saw the massive pileup on like the second day with the person holding the sign. We just finished Euro 2020 today. We just finished Copa America yesterday. We're about to have the Olympics. So much sports going on right now at such a high level. So in thinking about that, and we'll do this very briefly, Mark, I'm going to toss it to you first. What are your top 5 sporting events to watch? And that could be collectively, it could be, the college football playoff or the World Series or whatever, or it could be individual games. What are your top 5 sporting events to watch?
I thought you meant like this month.
Oh, well, hey, this month is also, there's a lot going on. So go ahead and give us, you can give us anything you'd like.
Okay. You were meaning top 5 sporting events
yes.
At all. Okay. Got it. So
if you need a minute to collect your thoughts, Matt and I can go first if you want to collect your top 5 of all time.
Y'all take it and come back to me,
okay.
And I may mix and match.
All right, I'll go first. So number 5 for me, and this would have been probably number 1 or number 2. I don't know, probably 5 to 10 years ago. I Mark, you alluded to this earlier. Used to be a big NBA fan and loved the NBA, and could probably go back and tell you, who won the NBA Finals and what the count was in terms of who won the amount of games. I mean, dating back to as long as I've been alive. Now, not so like I think Matt and I talked about it. I'm just not intrigued by the matchup now and haven't really been over the past couple of years. But number 5 for me is the NBA Finals. I mean, it used to be a huge deal for me and my family and just love watching the NBA. And it's hung around at number 5. Number 4, you think of college football and there's always that first weekend. You're probably 4 or 5 weekends into the season, but there's that first weekend where there's huge matchups, not only in conference, but they're big on the national scale. And you've got 4 or 5 like huge games throughout the day. And so you can get up in the morning, watch game day, flip it over to an 11 o'clock game that's big, then to a big game at 3. And then you've got maybe 2 or 3 games that night that are just huge and they have huge conference and national implications. So that's that first big weekend of college football where you got those big games. Number 3 for me is the Olympics. I think anytime on that national stage or the international stage where you've got people representing their country and you got the best athletes in the world. I mean, think of somebody like a Simone Biles, who could literally be the greatest athlete of all time when she's finishing up her career. You got Michael Phelps or Usain Bolt, or just these people that are so unbelievable athletic and then have the pride of competing for their country. Number 2 for me is NCAA March Madness. As a big college basketball fan, that Thursday, Friday, the first weekend, without a doubt, is so exciting. And then number 1, I've actually got the World Cup. Again, kind of like I was talking about the Olympics. Anytime you've got these athletes that are displaying their craft on behalf of their home country. When it was, I think it was when it was in Korea, maybe two times ago for the World Cup. I was up in the middle of the night watching the game. Like, it's so exciting. If the USA would just get a little bit better in men's, and the women's World Cup is very exciting as well. And our team is obviously very dominant. But the World Cup is my number 1 sporting event to watch. Matt, I will toss it to you for your top 5.
Man, I'm really not big into like the track and field stuff, but during the Olympics, there's just something about it, man. I love watching the Olympics. So that's number 5 for me. For number 4, I would say just pretty much all of college football. I love college football. Like you said, opening weekend. But except opening weekend for me is like every weekend. I love to grill on Saturdays and watch the game. Smoke some pork ribs or whatever. I'm all on it every weekend. For the NFL, I love watching Thursday night and Monday night football. Thursday night, Sunday night, and Monday night football. So my house, we're watching football all day Saturday, and on Sunday night, Thursday night, and Monday night. And my wife hates it. So that would be number 4. Or I guess it'd be number 4. Yeah. So then for sure college basketball with the March Madness. Then I would go. Man, it's just hard because I love the NFL playoffs. I love the Super Bowl. I love watching all that. And then I would say any Arkansas game, period. If it's on, if I'm not doing anything and I see a Arkansas women's soccer game, I'm going to watch it.
Yeah. Hey, not too long ago, a couple of months ago, we were with some friends up at our lake house, and me and the other husband watched the Kentucky women's volleyball team win the national championship because I was like, hey, my team's competing for a national championship. Yeah, you dang right, I'm going to watch it. So I completely get you there. All right, Kyle jumps in really quickly, and then Mark will get to yours. Kyle says number 5, WrestleMania. Number 4, the World Series. Number 3, March Madness. Number 2, college football national championship. And number 1, the Super Bowl, the game, not all the extra stuff. All right, Mark. I don't know if you've had time to collect your thoughts here, but top 5 sporting events to watch.
Yeah, I have a little bit. Some of these are. So let's start at number 5. I put this is kind of a 2-part answer, but I put the NFL Championship Sunday.
Okay.
When you got the AFC Championship and NFC Championship, but some people are like, well, why not the Super Bowl? And the Super Bowl is like right there with it, or probably even above it. But that one's kind of unique because like there's all that build up in anticipation of who's going, and you've had so many upsets over the years, and there have been seasons of my life where I've been a lot more into the NFL than I am right now. And I just remember so many of those championship Sundays where it's like, man, you got a 2:00 game, you got a 5:30 game. And like they're both leading to who's going to play in the Super Bowl. But so for me, I kind of got 5A and 5B, Championship Sunday and Super Bowl. Number 4, the Summer Olympics that are coming up. Y'all have touched on that. I don't watch any of these sports at all throughout the year, but man, the Summer Olympics get here and we're like glued to it for 14 or 17 days, from the opening ceremony to the closing ceremony. Whatever city, whatever country is hosting it, we got some friends that we do an opening ceremony event with every 4 years. Well,
that's awesome.
5 years right now, but
that's awesome.
So I got Summer Olympics there, and then my final 3 are probably not going to surprise you. They're all baseball, and I know like I'm a homer here. This is me, but number 3 is coming up tomorrow night, the Home Run Derby.
Yep.
I'm not at all proclaiming that's one of the top 5 sporting events of the year, but for me, the Home Run Derby is just pretty fun. I had an opportunity to go back in 2015 when it was in Cincinnati, and that was the first year that they had done the Home Run Derby on a timed clock, not by how many pitches. And the only reason they did it on a timer that night is because they had thunderstorms rolling in, and they were trying to get through it as quickly as possible. And the hometown guy, Todd Frazier, basically hit a walk-off home run as the time ran out in his home ballpark.
Nice.
And that was pretty epic. So that's number 3. Number 2 is opening day.
Mm-hmm.
There's just something about starting a season all over again, and opening day where everybody has a chance, and there's a lot of pomp and circumstance. And I've been to a few opening days in recent years, but there's been a couple of years too. If I'm not at opening day, I'll check our kids out of school early so we can come home and watch the 3:00 Dodger game.
Nice.
And that's kind of a family tradition that's been fun. And number 1 for me is the World Series, just the fall classic. So I'm gonna land on baseball there, which doesn't surprise anybody who knows me. But there's my 5.
There you go. Well, speaking of landing on baseball, we have got a champion to crown, and we're going to do it right now. So we've got the number 1 seed, the Yankee Stadium, and this I don't know if I even preface this with you guys, but that encompasses old and new. So just the Yankee Stadium brand, if you want to call it, against Wrigley Field, the 3 seed. We've got to pick a winner. I did not put this one on Twitter because we didn't know who was going to be obviously in the title matchup, but we've got to have a winner. Matt, we will start with you. Yankee Stadium and Wrigley Field for the title of best venue in sports.
Well, and I'll tell you this, we can change this to the most steroid injected venue in sports. I think it's going to go with the Yankees. Like we talked about, all the greats that have played there, all the historic games when the Yankees used to be so good and they used to win all those World Series. You just can't beat all the rich tradition there, which the Cubs is cool because it's an underdog story. But, championships are what put the butts in the seats sometimes.
All right, so we've got one vote for Yankee Stadium. Mark, I will let you vote next. Yankee Stadium or Wrigley Field?
Oh, this is so tough. When you did the Final Four, I didn't think it would be baseball versus baseball, which would have been easier for me if it wasn't. But, when I think about, I mentioned Yankee Stadium earlier, just the greats who have been there and the championships and all that. But I'm going to go Wrigley Field, and here's why I land on Wrigley Field. It's still standing, and there's only one. It's been around since 1914. I understood why they tore down old Yankee Stadium. They just needed the space. They needed the newness. But there is something, and they're both special. But like walking into Wrigley Field on a afternoon game with the sun overhead, doesn't matter who they're playing. That is pretty epic. So from a sports venue standpoint, not thinking about team championships, not even thinking about legends or Hall of Famers who've played there, which Wrigley Field has had that too. But from a sports venue standpoint, I'm going to land on Wrigley Field and the Ivy and the big scoreboard up in center field.
So we're tied 1 apiece. We've got Wrigley with 1, Yankee Stadium with 1. Kyle commented, and I'll pull it up. He says, "Can I break the tie?" And Kyle, Kyle, I don't know if you know this, Mark. Kyle's in Turks and Caicos right now. He is sitting poolside with his Mai Tai. He's got his umbrella in his drink. Just kicked back. He flew first class to get there. He's enjoying all the finer things in life that common folk like the rest of us don't get to enjoy.
Cockroach Hall of Fame, Michael.
And going to the Cockroach Hall of Fame on his way there for sure. I know, Kyle, there's no need for you to vote, Kyle, because we know that you would vote for Wrigley Field, and I'll counter vote. So we have a 2-1 Wrigley over Yankee Stadium. I'm the last vote. I was going into this thing, to be honest, thinking Yankee Stadium was going to win the whole thing. When I put it together, I almost had them as the number 1 overall seed, if you will. I thought it was going to win the whole thing, and there would be nothing that I would enjoy more than the agony of defeat that would come across Kyle's face watching Wrigley bow out in this final. But Mark, something you said has not been said throughout this entire bracket, and I find it incredibly factual and interesting, and I think it's the deciding factor, and that's what you said about it being the original. Mm-hmm. And Yankee Stadium, while it is probably historically best in terms of just the overall mystique and everybody that's played there and everything, but now it's a new stadium. Mm-hmm. And the fact that Wrigley Field has kind of, gone through the test of time, and it's one of the very few baseball stadiums in this bracket that is still the original.
107 years.
Kyle is going to be shocked, but I think I'm voting Wrigley Field as well. And Wrigley Field is our first ever best sports venue bracket champion. Congratulations to all the Cubs fans out there.
Cubs Nation, they need encouragement right now. They need all the hope they can get as they sit 8-9 games back in third place. But they've got the history. And congrats to Cubs Nation as they pull out the championship of the Dads Watching Sports podcast.
That's right. Absolutely. Well, thank you both. Kyle or Matt, thanks for pinch hitting this week. And Mark, thank you for joining us and giving us not only some great information about Simply a Fan, but then also helping us crown a champion. I appreciate you both coming on the show this week.
Thanks for having me, Michael.
Yeah, thanks, Michael. I really enjoyed it anytime.
All right. Well, we will be back next week. Kyle will be back, I believe, unless he just gets stuck in Turks and Caicos and has decided he is no longer, going to come on this podcast because he's living the high life. But we'll be back. Congratulations to the Cub Nation and Wrigley Field. Again, the first ever Best in Sports Venue bracket winner. We'll see you next week on Dads Watching Sports.